All right, everybody, sit back down. No more dancing in the aisles. You are listening to the Doc Owen Show. This is Richard Doc Owen, joined in the Hilltop Studios by...
I'm a Surefire.
And...
Uncle Bocce.
Full house, ready to rock and roll. Good show for you tonight, as always. We have an outside guest, a gentleman by the name of Clayton Perry that I think you're going to enjoy meeting. We're going to talk about youth in politics and where they should be, how important it is, and how to get involved. So, it's a pretty point-on conversation.
Good.
We are all over the social media as Doc Owen Show. DocWenShow is how you find us. Facebook, Twitter, got a blog, DocOwenShow.com, which is, among other things, the archive for Uncle Bocce's history lesson and a lot of data points that just don't quite make the cut of an 8 to 10 minute on air edition, because he's got it's kind of like, I went through, you may not know this. Do you know how long it takes for a stand-up comedian to put together 1 minute of his stand-up routine?
I have no idea.
42 minutes.
Really?
Yeah. That's the amount of time. So I'm giving you that so you'll get a taste for Uncle Bocce does 8 minutes on the air. Can you imagine how much research time he puts in to come up with that 8 minutes?
Yeah. That's
right?
a lot.
Yep, but it's fun.
It is a lot. I mean, it happens to be his passion, so that's a good thing. We also have free apps for both the Apple and Android devices. Wonderful thing to download. And you can get our entire roam through we're in year 5, so I don't know how many years worth of shows that we have out there, but you can kind of sort through them, pick topics, and get caught up on some things, etc. Or if you want to just go back and try to remember what was said or what was going on about a particular event, you might be able to find it by the title of the event, or if you know the approximate dates. We always start the show in a very traditional manner, other than those self-promoting announcements. They're not really advertisements. They're just announcements, because this is an advertising-free show. So, we segue into our traditional start, which tells you that we are officially underway. And that is, Ms. Surefire gives us a moment of inspiration, an inspirational thought. Uncle Bocce, if he can find it, has something about this day in history, an event that occurred at this point in the history. And then I close out the three-way routine with a leadership quote or so. So, Ms. Surefire, take it away.
And tonight's quote comes from PassItOn.com. I've been taking a lot of quotes from them.
Sure have. They must like you.
Yeah, and it was kind of like quick, and I just like close my eyes and just pick one. So there it is. This is today's quote.
Yeah, I hear them on radio all the time.
And tonight's quote comes from a gentleman by the name of Brandon Burchard.
Okay.
He is an author and motivational speaker.
All right.
And his quote is, "You have a chance every single morning to make that change and be the person you want to be. You just have to decide to do it."
As we say in the old country, words of wisdom.
That's right.
Good job.
Or palabras.
Every single day.
Yep.
Roll out of bed, I'm going to do this. Yeah, I like it. Uncle Bocce, I understand that you drew a blank on this day in history. Is that correct?
I did, yes. Now, I could have been diligent and gone back a few days, but I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, so March the 8th, historically, is a slow news day.
Obviously, yes, sir.
Maybe they're getting ready for spring break. That's why there was nothing going on.
Could be.
They were packing their suitcases and putting out their vouchers.
In honor of nothing happening, should we just have like 30 seconds of dead air?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Probably not.
I agree. Because we'll wind up wishing we had it towards the end of the show. My inspirational quote tonight actually comes from the Optimist Club. Their little book called Achieving the Extraordinary, and it's from a gentleman by the name of John Dewey, which the consensus here is he's responsible for the Dewey Decimal System, but I'm not so sure that's true. I don't know.
It may not be, but, the name is
he's
very,
of
very
the Dewey
familiar.
Decimal family, let's put it that way. Yeah. Every great achievement in science has issued from a new audacity of imagination.
Wow.
That's a good one. I like that.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And I guess what got me thinking about that was the quote that I heard this morning from Steve Jobs, who said that the really crazy people are the ones who think they can change the world and do.
Aha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just,
that's true.
So, or something to that effect. Okay, we're going to talk. We continue to march through former presidents of the United States, and in case this is your first time to join us, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you. But what we're doing, and the reason we started this trek, is because of all the pushback and undercurrent and negativity going around about our current administration against Donald Trump and company. So we wanted to know if this was unique or if it had happened in the past. And we've already we're on president number
14.
14. All right. And we've already run into one or two where it was not Pollyanna sort of an environment afterwards, right?
Right.
So I don't know if Franklin Pierce... Oh, I gave it away. My bad.
I already said that, didn't I? Franklin Pierce?
Not on the air.
Oh, okay.
So, now you have. So, Franklin Pierce, number 14, we're going to dive into that, and we're going to find out a little bit about what happened after he got elected and what he was able to accomplish either because he was supported or in spite of no support.
There you go.
Right?
That's right.
Bocce,
Okay.
you have the air.
Thank you very much. Good evening, folks. This is Uncle Bocce. Franklin Pierce, first name, last name, kind of switch kind of thing. We've had those before. Mildred Fillmore, whatever. Okay. Pierce went to a local school and 2 academies before attending, I don't know if I'm saying this right, it's Bowdoin College in Maine.
Oh, you're not.
Bowdoin? Bowdoin.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Boudin. Bowdoin.
Bowdoin. This is what I've got.
But still, it's Bowdoin.
It's Bowdoin. Okay.
That's not Boudin.
No, that would be in Louisiana.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking Boudin balls.
Yeah, it's about. So he went to a local school. Where did he grow up?
Well, I'll get there.
Okay.
Sorry, but that's where he went, and he had the privilege of studying with both Nathaniel Hawthorne.
Oh, cool! Yeah.
Yeah, and Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Ooh. So he was in good company.
He was.
He really was.
Yeah.
He graduated 5th in his class, and then he independently studied law and was admitted to the bar in 1827. Okay. Almost the same story as all of our other presidents so far. They always ended up with a law degree, and most of them had to do it on their own.
Yep.
Okay. His name really is Franklin Pierce. Some people called him, as a nickname, they called him Purse. Nobody knows why they called him Purse.
Okay.
Except
Maybe
that it's similar to Pierce. I don't know.
He held all the money.
Huh?
Yeah. He had all the money.
Maybe. But he also had the nickname of Handsome Frank. I guess back in that day, you got to look at his mug and see whether you agree that he was handsome or not. But they say it's self-explanatory. But no one agrees on why people were calling him Purse. So
okay,
we don't know that. it was given to him by his friends, and they think maybe it was because of his wealth. And he was involved also in the Gadsden Purchase, so that might be
Okay.
we paid for that. And those were that was land we bought from Mexico that added on to Arizona and New Mexico.
Right.
So that we could have that southern route.
Right.
Young Hickory of Granite Hills is another one that he is. This Hickory thing is, remember old Hickory Jackson?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he was called Young Hickory of Granite Hills. He compared his military deeds in the Mexican-American War with those of Andrew Jackson. So some people made that connection with him. And Granite Hills, of course, is the home state of New Hampshire.
Right.
His party, he was a Democratic Party.
Okay.
And he was only 48 years old when he became president.
Wow.
So he was a young guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was 5'10", weighed about 144 pounds. He was Episcopalian. He was born November 23rd, 1804 in Hillsborough, New Hampshire.
Okay.
And then he died on October 8th, 1869 in Concord, New Hampshire. He died of cirrhosis of the liver, or liver cirrhosis, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
His resting place is the Old North Cemetery in Concord, New Hampshire.
Okay.
Now, this is a very interesting point. I don't know if I should bring it up now, but anyway, he was married and he had 3 sons.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll tell you a little bit more about his 3 sons later. He was in office from March 4th, 1853 to March 4th, 1857.
Okay.
Which gives him 4 years.
Right.
His party decided to ditch him, and so he didn't get a second chance. Salary $25,000, and that's about $650 now.
Yep.
He held other offices in New Hampshire. He was in the New Hampshire legislature. He was a U.S. representative from New Hampshire. He was a senator from New Hampshire.
So he worked his way up.
Yeah. Basically, he went through, and he had a pretty powerful following in New Hampshire, politically. He joined the military to fight in the Mexican War, and he was a U.S. Army Brigadier General.
Wow.
From the 9th Infantry Regiment, for those of you who like to keep track of military. So he was a military man.
That's pretty high rank.
Yeah, he married a lady by the name of Jane Means Appleton from Hampton, New Hampshire, and she died at the age of 57 in 1863 of tuberculosis.
Right.
Okay? So, now we're here at the campaign of 1852.
Okay.
There were, well, I won't say that. There were a lot of competitors. What happened was that the Democrats, they held their convention in Baltimore.
Okay.
And of all the leading people that were there, none of them could get better than 50%.
Right.
And there were some there,
and they didn't
there
have
were
a
there were
runoff
names
thing.
Right.
They just kept going at it all.
Right.
X number of people went at it.
Exactly.
Every time.
Stephen A. Douglas was one of them.
Wow.
We've heard about him before.
Yep.
But they were very prominent Americans. I off my top of my head, I don't remember their names. So they went through 35 different ballots. But before they got to the 35th, they realized none of these guys.
This is going to work.
This is not going to work.
Right.
We need to get a dark horse.
Okay.
Like Millard Fillmore or somebody that, that nobody knows.
Right.
But has been in politics. So that's on the 35th vote, Franklin Pierce got the nomination for the Democrats. So, and he wasn't even in the first round. So they agreed on that. So he ran against a famous guy who was a Whig, and this was the last time the Whigs ever put anybody up for presidency.
Okay.
Because the last one was the last president, Winfield Scott. He was a military guy too, and there were quite a few other. I don't recognize these names very well, but there was a John Hale. Daniel Webster.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was one of the guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jacob Broom and George Troop, but they all didn't do very well.
I heard the rap on Webster was all of his political speeches were in alphabetical order, and they were hard to follow.
Could be. You could be right. I don't know. Okay, so Franklin Pierce won handily out of 296 electoral votes required. He garnered over 50% of that, which was 254. No, not 50%. He garnered 254 of those 296.
Wow.
Okay, and he
Franklin
did well.
Pierce did?
Yeah, a man that nobody knew, mind you, except in New Hampshire.
Maybe that's why they voted for him, because they were tired of politicians.
Well, they could have. He narrowly won the popular vote by 50.8%, and the others did not fare well at all. Okay, cabinet members, he had the same, same 7 cabinet. He didn't add any.
Okay.
After Taylor added the Secretary of the Interior. So it was pretty much the same guys. One of them, though, very prominent, the Secretary of War.
Yeah.
Guess who that was? Jefferson
Davis.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was from the South.
Yeah. He was the president of the South.
Yeah. Yeah. So
President of the Confederate
the
States
way,
of America.
Yeah. The way that they worked this was pretty clever because the North and the South, you know the tensions that there are, whether they're political or agricultural or whatever. There's been this tension. Well, he was a Northerner who kind of like could slip in favor of the South. So what they did is they went in the South and they campaigned like crazy.
For Franklin Pierce.
Because
Interesting.
They were thinking that he was going to be... The man had no slaves.
Right.
I mean, he was from New Hampshire, so obviously. There were no states admitted to the Union. He did have some good court appointments. One Supreme Court justice. His name was John Campbell, if that means anything to anybody. And he did district courts, 4.
Okay.
So he did have a really great record, as far as that's concerned. And so that's pretty much the introductory for Franklin Pierce.
Okay.
Next week,
we'll get to something he did that was noteworthy or not.
Absolutely.
Okay.
His foreign and domestic policy and some other interesting stories.
So he did attempt to add some value.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. He definitely did.
Okay, we won't.
So we'll get there next week.
We'll find out next week whether he was successful or
exactly.
not. And so post-election problems, everybody, that sounds like a landslide electoral.
Mm-hmm. Which is really interesting for an unknown person.
But you said he barely won the popular. So was there a lot of rancor? Was there a lot of pushback? Was there a lot of, Trump's not your real president, Hillary is, because she won the popular?
No, there wasn't any of that. Because he picked some of his opponents for his cabinet.
Okay. So he immediately reached across the aisle. Okay.
Yeah, he reached across the aisle, plus he kind of wiggled his way between North and South, which was very
So he wasn't real vulcanizing.
No, that's exactly right.
Okay.
He was very conciliatory.
Interesting. Smart approach.
Yeah.
Only approach to take at that time to continue to postpone the inevitable war.
That's exactly right.
Okay. Thank you, Uncle Bocce.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I am Uncle Bocce at DACA. DACA? No.
You want to tell him?
No DACA.
I mean, you want to tell him how to get a hold of Uncle Bocce? He seems to be...
Let's see.
A tongue tie.
UNCLE_B.
No.
No underscore.
No
That's
underscore.
your Twitter handle?
I think it is. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is my Twitter handle.
Okay.
UncleBocce.com.
Oh.
No.
That's your webpage.
We're not going to get over this. I feel a little bit of Franklin Pierce coming on. No.
Just Google
UNCLEBACI at DocOandShow.com.
Or Google him. I'm sure he'll come out on the internet.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can tell it's time to have a pre-recorded promo. It always comes out the same way. Thanks, Uncle Machi.
You're welcome.
Good job. Tonight we're gonna talk a couple of things. First of all, the conversation that I have is with a gentleman by the name of Clayton Perry. Clayton's a small town Texas boy that graduated from one of our finer universities in the state, and then went into the Air Force, did his duty, and wound up as a part of his Air Force duty in San Antonio, liked it here, and stayed here. He has recently run and been elected to San Antonio City Council. So he's got a local office, but as we continue to sort of preach on the Doc Owen Show, first of all, local elections matter in a big way, and they matter to everyone that was within the sound of our voices, because that's the opportunity that everybody has to reach out, touch, and have a conversation with politics, with a politician that is either just starting out, or you have to look at them as a conduit to the president or the highest rank, because you never know where they're going to wind up if they're young,
true.
Or who they're going to have dinner with and have conversations with. And, if a city council person calls the state representative from his area, he's more likely to get a call back and have a conversation than you or I are. If that state representative then talks to the governor, then that's how things work.
Yeah.
So you start with the person in your locale that generally has an open door policy, and you can just go. And that's something that I don't want to steal Clayton's thunder, but that's kind of what we're going to talk about. And then as we have time, we will circle back and continue to talk about a particular local election that has New World Order global connections. And you need to be aware of both things that are going on. So let's let Clayton have the air, and we'll be back after the conversation. I am about to have a conversation with a city councilman from San Antonio, Texas. And because of our reach and our target audience of young folks, I got a feeling that this conversation is going to apply to the vast majority of the listening audience. I think it will. First of all, let me get the gentleman's name is Clayton Perry. Mr. Perry, how are you?
I'm doing great. And yourself, Doc?
Doing great. Thank you, sir. Let me give you a little bit of background. Clayton, correct me if I'm wrong, but you represent the 10th district in San Antonio, which historically we've only had 9, but then Clayton appeared and everybody decided he'd be a good candidate, so we added one more just so we could get him in. He's a first-term city councilman that was elected in 2017. Is that right?
In June. Just how many months is that? 7 months, something like that, or 8 months now?
Good for you. He's previously he was a military vet in the Air Force. He spent 21 years as a civil engineer in the Air Force, and as part of that duty, I think was your last duty station Randolph?
Yes, it was.
Is that how we wound up lucky enough to get you?
Yeah, absolutely. That was at Randolph, and I retired out of the Air Force back in 2000.
There you go. And just sitting around at your young age wasn't a good idea, was it?
Well, no. I at that point, I had 3 kiddos getting ready to go to college. Actually, one of them was already in college, and I found out real quick that I couldn't afford not to work. So I got another job with a couple over the years, a couple of large engineering construction firms, and continued to work for another 13 years.
There you go. Well, folks with that kind of a background, especially an engineering degree from Texas A&M, you shouldn't have much trouble finding work.
Yeah, it actually worked out perfectly. they offered me a job as a consultant to start off with, and
Sure.
before I knew it, just within a month or so, they brought me on full time, and the rest is history.
There you go. We are glad to have you on City Council.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. Perry is kind of fighting. He's the guy on the council that says, "Hold on, wait a minute. Let's think about this a little bit."
Right.
And
right.
Puts his engineering skills to work.
Right.
Tell I was joking on the way into my day job this morning about asking you the question of what does a city councilman do, and then my immediate response was kind of, who cares? But I was I was making a joke, and I wasn't sure how well that would go over with you.
I tell you what, I can really appreciate that. I can really appreciate that. Up until me getting into this, I did. I kind of sort of knew what city councilman does because I've been pretty active in my community here over the last 26 years here where I live at, and so I got to know the previous city council folks that were here, and so I kind of had an idea. But man, I tell you what, now that I'm in it, it's opened my eyes. That's for sure.
That's why they pay you the big bucks, right?
Right.
I can. Clayton takes a leadership role. I got a feeling, no matter where he is or what he does, he's the only person I've ever seen that can sit down to a tray of crawfish and go through 12 pounds before he orders his second Shiner Bach. So.
I know. I saw that myself too.
There you go. So, man, that's amazing.
So tell me, day to day. I mean, tell the young people in the audience. I mean, I'm a firm believer, and I think I told you this when we first met, that I'm a firm believer in local government and citizens being involved in local government. It's far more important that we get involved in the activities going on in our community than it is to make sure we're, dressed up and looking good to go vote for the President of the United States.
You couldn't have said it any better. You could not have said it any better. Let me tell you, down in your local elections, really that's where the rubber meets the road. I mean, when you look at what goes on at the city level, that affects your everyday life. Whereas up at the state level, the legislature, Senate at the state, or even at the federal level, that doesn't really affect your day-to-day life. Yes, eventually it does with paying income tax and that kind of thing, but your day-to-day life is affected directly by your city council and the city staff. Absolutely.
And it's quicker. You feel the joy or the pain either way a whole lot faster than you do when it's coming farther away. And the other thing I thought about was I wrote a paper as an undergrad political scientist at A&M about the mathematics of the vote, and I would like spare me a few minutes, Clayton. If you look at just very basically, you are one vote. You're what we call the numerator. You're on the top above a line drawn to divide by, and if you divide by the number of people that vote in a city election versus the number of people that vote in a national election, it becomes very apparent very quickly that how much more your vote counts. In other words, you're one over maybe 250,000 in a city election, and you're one over 15 million in a national.
Yes,
so,
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
How does... go ahead.
Yeah, that just shows, the importance of that local vote also. I mean, and at the local level with your city councilman, I mean, you can walk right in and go visit your city councilman. You can't do that up at the state level or federal level.
That's right. That's right.
right here. I've got a satellite office and then got a downtown office as well. But you can just walk right on in saying, "Hey, I'd like to speak to the councilman. Here's my issues, and let's sit down and talk about it." So very easy access, and being able to talk directly across the table from who you may or may not have voted for, but they represent you in your district.
Well, you just said something that's a key. You may or may not have voted for them, but they represent you, and
yes.
they have taken you, Clayton Perry, have taken on the role of talking to everyone and listening to everyone. I've noticed you're very good at. No matter whether that's not your first question is not, did you vote for me? Your first question is probably, what can I do for you?
Absolutely. That's, and I learned that really, really well when, my 21 years in the Air Force. That was drilled into you every day about customer service and, what can I do for you? That should always be your first question. And,
right.
And taking care of your customers. And that's the way I view everybody that lives here in District 10. They are my customers. I call them, a lot of people say constituents. Well, that word isn't even allowed to be used in my office. We're all neighbors in District 10. You are my neighbor. And that's the way I look at it.
I like it. There's a house in our neighborhood over here that's for sale. I'd like to see if you'd be interested. I told you when we met, I wish I were in your district.
Yeah.
So, and I view part of your role is if I have an issue that I think is at a broader level than what you can personally impact, you're still I would think you'd be the first person to go to if a state representative or say somebody just from the county level, just one little area above you had an issue. They're going to come and ask you what your district thinks or how they feel, or you know what I'm saying? In other words, if I had an issue at that level, I would come to you first and say, "Hey, Mr. Perry, how should I approach this, or who should I go see and talk to at this other level?" Does that make sense?
Very good point. Absolutely. And you can ask my staff what I've asked them to do, and they're still working on it. And I want to get out and meet all the legislators around for San Antonio or even around San Antonio here, that I can develop that personal relationship with them, so that on those issues I can reach out to them and talk to them about something that's going on that might affect not only District 10, but the whole city of San Antonio, and vice versa. They can come to me saying, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And open that communication between myself and themselves to make sure that we do have that two-way communication going on.
I think it's very important, and I'm glad to hear you take that approach. I was making an assumption, but I figured that's just the way you were based on your background. So what can young people do? I mean, where do they get involved? Do they get involved like I did at 14 or 15? I started block walking for my congressman, and there's still some folks out stumping away at that. But these folks are they're electronics oriented. I mean, how do you reach? Do you still use social media? Do you go after these? I mean, what can young people do that don't want to leave their house?
Well,
what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I know exactly what you're saying. And I can tell you, I was one of them when I was younger. I didn't take much of a part in or any interest in politics. Yes, I would vote once in a while. I wasn't even a consistent voter, but because I was growing up, I was trying to make my mark on life and raise a family, that kind of thing. So I was more interested, more busy on other things. But at some point in time, and there are some just outstanding, well-rounded young individuals that are getting involved at a younger age nowadays. I think more so than when I was growing up. And and they're eager to learn. They're eager to get involved. But you're right. A lot of it is electronically communicated on Facebook. Let me tell you, I've got, let's see, 2 or 3 Facebook pages. I've got an Instagram. I got a Twitter account. I got all those things. And,
good.
And,
good for you.
Thank you. My staff helps me a lot with that. I don't have to get on there and do all that, but they help me a lot navigate through that business. But those are ways to reach out to the younger generation. And oh, by the way, there's a lot of older folks like me that are on that stuff too. So it's a good way to keep the lines of communication open and express yourself. And if there's issues out there, heck yeah. Another one that's really popped up here lately within the last year or two is Nextdoor. Yes. Wow. What a deal with that one. I mean, there's some threads that go on forever and ever on issues, that people want to see changed or fixed. And that's great because we pick up on that and, I can't get out to every nook and cranny in District 10, but I tell you what, when something gets on Nextdoor or Facebook or any of those other social media accounts, we'll get out there and we'll take a look at it and see what we can do to fix it. So, yes, that is one way to get engaged. But what really heartens me is that I'm seeing more and more younger folks getting involved. I hold a neighborhood meeting every third Monday of the month. And there's more and more young folks getting involved in that. And I think that is just fantastic, where you see them face to face and you have folks volunteering for the different committees and boards that we have. So I'm very heartened about that.
That's great. And Clayton, have you shared that idea with other members of council? I'm sure you have. Well,
yes. Everybody does something a little bit different. Yep. Everybody has their way of doing things, but this is something that's been going on for a number of years now in District 10, and it has worked very, very well.
Okay.
And I'm just continuing that and trying to make improvements and actually make the meetings, fun. And we instituted. We're now giving away raffle prizes at the community meetings, and that makes it a little bit more interesting. And we don't do that till the very end of the meeting, so people hang around. But that's a lot of fun. I'm open to any kind of ideas to make them more interesting.
Do I have to live in District 10 to enter the raffle?
No, not at all. You can come on over there. In fact, it's every third Monday. It's a District 10 meeting, and then we alternate with an organization that's called the Northeast Neighborhood Alliance, which is a collection of over 85 communities across District 10. And actually, we stretch over into District 2 and District 9 also.
Wow. That
has organized into a single group that carries a very loud voice when it comes to city politics. And that's one reason that we organize that.
Do I remember correctly that your predecessor was limited, but we have term limits for everybody else. We have term limits for city council, city offices here in San Antonio of what, 3 2-year terms? Isn't that correct?
No, actually it's four 2-year terms, so you can serve up to 8 years, right?
Okay. And your predecessor had hit the term limit when you ran for office? No,
actually, he did not. He served for a term because he actually filled an unexpired term of the previous council. So it was a term and a half that he actually served.
Okay.
And then he stepped down. He wanted to get back to his woodworking business.
Well, the point I was going to make was that you were a real gentleman, and didn't get in, didn't throw stones at an existing. You know what I'm saying? That was, and I didn't realize. I knew that to be the case, and I didn't realize. I thought it was because of term limits, but he just wanted to get back to private practice or private business.
Yes, exactly. And I would not have done that. In fact, I
wouldn't think you would.
Him.
Yeah,
I supported him during his election, so I wouldn't jump in unless he was stepping down. Right.
So, for the audience's sake, I mean, Clayton Perry is one of the good guys. He's one of these guys that you want to get to know, and don't try it with your city council person. Make a run at it. It's kind of on you. Talking to the audience, the city, they don't have time because of what they have almost basically volunteered to do in terms of their responsibilities to the city council and to their piece of the government, to go door to door and meet everyone. But they do, I'm sure, like Clayton said, have an open door policy, drop by or make an appointment or come to one of these community meetings if they're having. I mean, that's the best way in the world for you to get involved, and it's not really very intimidating. You know what I'm saying? The young people need to know it's not. These guys are not in black robes like the Supreme Court.
No, like I say, I tell everybody I'm just a little old farmer boy from Giddings, Texas. That's all I
am. I use that same line too, but I'm not. It's not Giddings. Yeah. It's College Station.
There you go. And my show is open for folks to come by and talk, and it's always good to hear good stories, and 90% I guess is issues that folks have out in their neighbors. But hey, that's what I'm here for. I'm gonna help and do what I can to take care of any issues that we have in our district here.
Well, is there anything? What have I not asked you? What have I not brought up that is kind of on the top of your head?
I just want to emphasize the thing about young folks getting involved and participating. And when you look at the demographics on the voting and the ages voting, I can tell you it was, 80% or 85% of the votes cast in my election last June was over the age of 60.
Are you kidding?
And no, it was. I mean, it was just, and I think it was only 2 or 3% of the vote was under 30, which it was just astounding to me that it was that much of a difference. But again, hey, I was young. I kind of did the same thing, and because I had priorities going on and what have you. But I really encourage anybody that's in the least bit interested in where they're living, what's going on around them, how much they're paying in sales tax, how much they're paying in property tax, how much they're, are they happy with the safety and security where they live? Police and fire. Are they happy with the roads that are around there, sidewalks, parks, libraries? All that falls under the purview of the city council.
Yep.
And there's tons of organizations that the city council actually provides monetary assistance to help carry out those programs as well.
Yep.
And if we don't hear anything from folks, we have to hear from folks to know what direction we need to be going in.
Right.
And there's lots of different ways to contribute there. And I would say if you don't want to get involved at the city level, at least be involved within your community. Be a part of your homeowners association. That's what I did. I volunteered to be on the board, and then I was the president and did that for a number of years, and then moved on up to the Northeast Neighborhood Alliance. And all of those are volunteer organizations. But let me tell you what, it is important. It's important for you and your family. And if you're raising a family, especially with little ones, wow, man, I tell you what, you need to really let your elected officials know what you're interested in and where you want to see us spending our resources, your tax dollars.
I think your dedication to that is similar to mine because of where we grew up. The worst thing that could happen to me as a youngster was if I was out fooling around with some horseplay or something and got caught. I'd rather they take me to jail than call my mother. But the next day at school, everybody knew about it. I mean, when I was in College Station, I graduated with 78 other people, and that's the kind of community you used the word community, and we have to create that type of a close-knit community within metropolitan areas, and then knit those together. Is
absolutely
okay.
Absolutely, that is very important to be able to do that, and it gives you a sense of belonging. That's what it really is.
We know what it feels like. Is why I can hear it in your voice. You know, we know what it feels like to have grown up in that, and we really, I get the feeling you feel as strongly about it as I do. Would really like to have our young people understand and appreciate that feeling, and it happens at your level.
Absolutely, and you know, it's not gonna happen with just sitting back and letting somebody else do it. You have to be engaged. You got to get involved and let folks know what you want to see and what you want to have done.
So Clayton's being very politically correct about it. The Doc Owen Show delivers truth to youth. So you need to get off your butt the third Monday evening and, get off the cotton picking couch, put the soda or the beer down or whatever, and go over there and hang out for a little while and see what's going on.
There you go.
There's your first shot. Just go hang out. Stay outside the fence if you don't want to, get roped into being a volunteer for something. But just go give it a look and see who's there that you already know.
Yep.
That'd be my encouraging word.
I totally agree with you, Doc.
Mr. Perry, thank you.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing you around the campus sometime.
Absolutely, or maybe see you out there eating some crawfish again.
Let's go for it.
All right,
thanks,
sounds
Clayton.
great. Thank you, Doc. Appreciate
God bless.
it.
Bye-bye.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Clayton Perry. He's real.
He's real.
That's what you gotta like about him. He's real. He is equally real on city council, equally real in his city council dealings, etc. He's a gentleman, very much so. Mm-hmm. But there's a reality behind him that you just cannot miss, and sort of look. I mean, he's a breath of fresh air in a room full of politicians.
Ha ha ha. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I wish him luck. He's in an uphill battle, uphill fight. Mm-hmm. He's not going to win any deciding votes whatsoever, but he is there to represent the constituents of his neighborhood, and does I'm sure a very formidable job of it. We recently had this past Tuesday, day before yesterday. Mm-hmm. Wow. Day before yesterday, we had our local, well, actually statewide
election. Yeah.
It was the primaries. The Democrat and Republican primaries here in Texas. And there were obviously some winners, some losers, and we're going to have some runoffs. I mean, we had one particular race that's replacing a long-time congressman in a particular district that involves us, and there were like 18 people on the ballot. The top person got like 24% or some kind of nonsense.
They're all waiting for him to retire.
Yeah, so 18 people jumped on the bandwagon, and if you're not familiar with how primaries work, the top two get to have a runoff, and those will be held in May. Mm-hmm. There was one very significant race that is going to be a significant race in November when the Republican meets the Democrat. And the reason I'm bringing it up for the audience, don't go away. You know how we are. We're not talking about San Antonio. We're talking about America in particular. Mm-hmm. But San Antonio happens to be a hot spot for something that's going on in the United States. You should by now, if you've listened at all to the Doc Owen Show or others of our ilk, be familiar with the name George Soros. Mr. Soros is a multi-billionaire Nazi. There's no other way of putting it.
No other way.
I'm just not going to be polite about it. His primary objective is to destroy the United States of America as we know it.
And profit from it.
And he profits from it up or down.
That's
how he makes his money. But he invests through, and unfortunately, it's legal. He invests and creates political action committees who then turn around and contribute to the candidates of his choice. All right? Mm-hmm. They are literally bought and paid for by Mr. Soros.
Yep.
All right. And we had a situation here in Bexar County, and his target, by the way, are district attorneys.
All over, yes.
All over the United States.
Mm-hmm.
We are one of 12 that he bought just in this most recent election season, and there'll probably be a few more because I think Texas is one of the first primaries. Mm-hmm. So, and what he does is our district attorney, you have heard on this show numerous times, his name is Nico LaHood. And you are more than welcome to go through our archives and listen to my conversations with Nico LaHood, and you make up your own mind as to what type of fellow this is. He's an honest Injun. He's an open book. He or I, neither one, are stepping outside of who we are to have our conversations.
That's correct.
He's not blowing smoke up my arse, and I'm not blowing it up his. I mean, we're just having a every time.
That's
so
true.
You need to go back. And so to tell you how destructive this strategy is of Soros, Nico is about law and order. We have issues in San Antonio with our police chief, with our mayor, with our city council, with our sheriff, and with our city manager, who all support sanctuary city activities. The only person that does not is Nico LaHood. He stands for law and order. And he's going to be gone. He's gone. I mean, he's still in office, but he's out of the race because he got primaried out with a $950,000 ad campaign in the last 90 days. Soros spent $1 million to get law and order out of the way. And
it's very unfortunate.
I put that out there, America, so you won't let it, or try not to let it, or be aware of it in your hometown. If you're in a major or secondary size city in this country, you need to watch very closely at who's behind whom and what their ultimate intention is. That's always been the case, but now it's even worse.
Yep, more so.
You know, you just must be diligent and you must be involved. And you got to start at the level that Clayton Perry and I were talking about. Get to know your city councilman. That's the closest you're ever going to come to being able to influence, or not ever. That's not fair to say. That's the place to start to influence government, is to create a voice with. Front row. Time to go. You have been listening to the Doc Owen Show. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. Now go out there this week and take care, pay attention, and God bless.
Bye-bye, folks. God bless.